You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. Just caught Matt mid-sip of tea.
Yes. Big Earl Grey fan.
Oh, I love Earl Grey too.
I love Earl Grey.
With milk, a little bit of cream.
A little bit of cream.
In there.
See,
nice.
Of course. Yep.
I have a really lovely espresso.
Awesome.
Super jazzed about it. I just signed on with an espresso subscription service. So
cool.
I get different espresso every month now.
That's fun.
Amazing.
That's super fun.
Anywho.
We got 8 inches of snow. You can't see it again because the light, you can see the windows all super lit up back here. But yeah, so it's perfect for hot tea. We got a fire ablazing and pretty cool. We don't get 8 inches very often in the Ozarks. That's a lot of snow for us.
Yeah, it is. Man, all right. That's a tough one to just tough joke to bypass.
Now you got a cold
all
open.
Right,
here we go. Knock. Who's there? Goal setting.
Oh yeah, not 8 inches. Okay, got it. Okay, so today we're talking about honestly something that a bajillion people have talked about before. We've talked about it before. We're going to talk about goal setting. But we're going to talk about it again because it's still really important. You may go through times in training where you're just kind of on autopilot, like I think Scott coined it before, just taking your medicine.
Yep.
But then there are some times where you're just like, man, I want to be more engaged, and you find something that's a bit more important to you. And what we want to do is help you actually outline those goals and then really flush them out so that you can actually freaking do them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we have a cool perspective on this because we're coaches, and people come to us because they have physical goals. They have strength goals. They have nutrition goals. They have body comp goals. And then as a company, like we spend all week working on the goals for the company.
Yeah.
And we have to align the team. We have to align our resources. We have to make sure we're doing well. So I think we're pretty immersed in goals.
One of the things that's interesting about that is that for most of our listeners, we're going to talk today about those individual goals, right? The life goals, health goals, performance goals. And you have total control over those goals. We want to talk about the strategies and tips and tricks that we have to make sure we're setting goals correctly and we're positioning ourselves to pursue those goals rightly. It's interesting when you move into team goals, business goals, you start to have multiple people have to work on the same goal, and it actually makes it much more complicated. But I actually think that when you can then pull out of that and go back to an individual goal, at least for me, it's so much easier for me now to just write an individual goal and actions to support that goal because it's just me. You're not relying on anybody else. And so we've been working on a big proposal as a team over the last couple of weeks, and we're all working together on one proposal. So it's like, it actually is reminiscent for me of being back like in my master's and writing my master's thesis. But instead of doing it all by yourself, you're doing it with the team, which is great because I don't have to do all of it, but it also creates additional sort of complications. And so, yeah, I think our life is constantly focused around goals, whether that's personal, professional, fitness, strength related. So we've been doing this a long time. So I know we've got a lot of fun tips to share.
Lots of learning things.
Yeah.
You said something that was really cool there, that when it's your own goal, you know exactly what to do, which admittedly, even I'll struggle with when it's just myself. And I've actually have a cool structure now that I think works a bit better that I want to tell you all about. And I've been reading Ray Dalio's Principles book, which if you haven't read it, it's like amazing. So I'll be pulling quite a bit from here. So highly recommend that when you're like something you want to do, when you're working with a team, when you're ready to kind of learn and change, totally recommend that book.
Yep. Agreed.
But the first place to start with your goal setting, in this should not be taken lightly, is to figure out what the hell you want.
Yep.
Like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Because the cool thing about setting a goal is it actually can just lay out a plan for you to actually get what you want. So don't waste that opportunity.
How do you find really what you want?
I find that it takes a lot of like just quiet thinking. I'm an internal processor for the most part. I know, Matt, you're an external
Clearly.
processor.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. Like I'll actually feel something first where I'll feel like something's wrong or I'm missing out on something. And it takes me a while to kind of identify what that is. And it usually means that I want something different. And it'll start sometimes with like a superficial thing or maybe a superficial need. And the more I dig into what I actually really want, what that root is, it starts to become more clear what I actually want.
Yeah.
And it ends up looking like more of sometimes a really specific thing, but it'd be like to compete, for an example. But
Right.
really the part of competing is me being able to express myself with strength and express myself physically whenever I want to. So there's always like something deep to it.
This is like the 5 whys. You done that before?
Yes. Yeah,
So
totally.
So if I said, well, what do you want to do physically? And your answer is, I want to compete. And I would say, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to compete? Like, let's do it for real. Why do you want to
Why do I
compete?
want to compete? Because I want to demonstrate that I am strong.
And why is that important to you?
I want to demonstrate that I'm strong because it shows that I can become better and I can train and I can like go somewhere that's more than I am now and get uncomfortable with it, but also know that I can like be better. And there's just something about that, the 10-second grinder deadlift.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do that,
Yeah.
but man, it is gratifying.
That's right. So you can do this with yourself. You can do this, and it doesn't even have to be with goals specifically that you're setting. A lot of times when you're having a conversation with somebody else and they're discussing something they want, I often want to make sure people understand I'm not pushing on them just to push on them. It's like, let's really get to the heart of the matter. It's it's the onion peel, right?
Yes.
So you say you want this thing. Well, why do you want this thing? Right? Well,
Yeah.
because well, why is that? Well, because it would make me feel like this. Like, well, why?
Ooh, yes.
Because
it would make me feel
I
like
would
this.
feel more
Yeah.
accepted by these people. Well, why do you want that? Right. And so and eventually you get down to the thing and you're like, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's
You can feel it too. You
That's
have like a
right.
physical reaction.
That's right. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that is the goal.
Yeah.
But that often takes, it's funny. It's actually, you mentioned this and now I just realized this is exactly what we did, is that you do that exact same process with yourself completely quietly. You think, but it's the same thing. And then I do it verbally.
Yeah.
So I talk
cool.
through it. Like a lot of times I'm just, I'll go to Rachel and be like, can I just talk about something for a minute in the business or whatever? And it doesn't have anything to do with her. I just need somebody to listen and I need to like walk through it and just say those things.
Yes.
Why do I want that? Why does that matter? And then it leads me to the next thing. So really the goal of setting that goal is to get down to the center of the onion, to get out of the superficial and get into the what really matters. So
yeah. And what you just said, I think is really important. Is like, it can be uncomfortable, especially before you and I even understood how much of an external processor you were. Like, you would say something and it took us a while to realize like, oh, what he's saying right now isn't the end. Like, this is part of it's the rough draft. Yeah.
That's
and
right.
then we go back and forth and it gets refined. And having someone who you can talk to, who can kind of let you be in that place of discomfort while you kind of figure things out, I think is super important for your goal setting, because you're probably going to start peeling into that part of the onion where you're just like, ah, man, that is what I want.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy to actually admit, but it's cool when you get there.
Well, and I think often it is often emotional.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I'm going through that process of peeling those onion layers back, you get to one, you ask why and you're fine. You ask why and you're fine. You ask why you're fine. And then you ask why and you break. And it breaks you. And you're like, oh, that's why. Right. And so,
yeah.
and that's the key, because anything else is superficial. And I would argue that a superficial goal is often an unsustainable goal.
Right.
And that when you find the thing that really matters, that's the heart, that's the foundation, it's the root of the goal, that's the thing that then can be pursued, right? And we can't apply a strategy to meet the goal, to build the habit, without really finding what the right goal is and the root of that goal. And so that creates, it takes some time to either really, really think through or really, really talk through.
Because you're going to fail. There are going to be problems. and you're not going to like succeed in every little step. And if you don't care about it, if it's one of those superficial likes, you'll just be like, oh, I'm a failure. I don't care about it anyway.
Right.
But if you do care about it, you'll actually want to learn and grow from those failures.
That's right. It's
and
not
that's
linear.
A big difference. Yeah.
It's not linear, right? Which is hard for us because even as coaches, one of the things we love about linear progression training in the beginning is it is linear.
So nice.
And you just get a little better every single workout. And then at some point that stops working. And it really never works again unless you take a big layoff from training or get sick or something. And so there is something really nice when you can make a little tiny step forward every single time and never take a step back. But that's not life. And any goal that's going to be hard to achieve. By the way, any goal that has any value is something that's going to be hard to achieve, hard to pursue, something that's uniquely difficult and therefore won't be linear. You're going to take a step forward or 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes you're going to take 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
Yeah, and that's hard. It's
It is
super hard.
It is hard.
It's
But
a hard
if the goal
thing to
is
stomach.
real, if the goal is real and the goal is deep, it'll be worth it to pursue. And if it's superficial, it'll be fleeting and you'll let it go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's the loop. That's Ray Dalio has that loop where it's like, try, do well, encounter a problem, come back down,
Fail.
and then
That's
try
right.
and build back up. Yeah.
That's right.
And we get to look at metrics all the time with people's nutrition and training. So we get to see on a really zoomed out scale, like, oh yeah, it's this up and down, up and down, up, down, maybe a big down and then back up, back up, back up. But yeah, it's like more linear the more you zoom back.
I'm sort of embarrassed to admit that I don't know what this is called, but when you're looking at like a line graph and you look at a detailed line graph and it's sort of a series of ups and downs. Mm-hmm. I love it when our statistician takes it and does the one that sort of balances.
The trend line?
Is that what it is? And it just like, and that's the trend. Okay. Well, I knew that word. I'm not that dumb. But anyway, it's just, it just kind of takes out the highs and lows and you can see the trend is this because it is so easy to see, like the markets have been crazy the last several weeks, right? And the stock market's been down like crazy, but God,
yeah.
I would bet any amount of money over the next 20 years, they still go up. Right. I mean, that's just right.
Don't read Ray Dalio's other book.
Right. Well, that's true. This might be the one time the first time in human history in several hundred years that we're about to go through the same. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, the idea there is it's so easy to look at the one piece of the puzzle failure and think that you're going to miss out on the whole puzzle. You're not. It's just all part of that. So what's the next thing when you figure out the goal for you? Or the goals for you that are really important? What is the next thing that you do?
So this is an interesting one because I usually get really hung up here. And that's where I need to start externally processing because I've learned over time that I'm like a little more whimsical, good at ideas, not super like systematic approach, logical. And I'm so glad we have people on our team who are like that. Like you actually and Andrew and Josh are like really good at actually seeing the steps that have to occur. So for me, my next step is figuring out like I might have to talk to someone who's a bit more logical. And Andrew taught me something really cool with this. He learned this when he was working is you really kind of describe what it is you want, like put some detail on it. Like, competing means this or like expressing myself physically means this, this, and this because it starts to look a bit more real. And then you make a list of why you're not that person right now, like why you can't have that, why you're not there right now. And you'll have what look like excuses, but actually that can become your action plan. So it's just like, oh, I don't know how to do XYZ, or I don't have the money for this, or I have no idea how to do this kind of nutrition. And solving those little problems, that's your action plan.
Yeah, that's good. So it's almost like an extra step in what we've talked about in the past of we use goals, actions, metrics, and in sort of the physical world, it's goals, actions, and PRs. Like the PRs, that is the tracking, right, of the metric. The actions support the goal. So once you figure out the goal, you go, okay, what are the major actions that need to be done? And that they're almost always, they should be able to be answered yes or no that will support that goal, right? Mm-hmm. However, if you aren't sure, then this is where I think this intermediate step that you're talking about right now, which I've never even thought about, is that when you're like, well, what are the actions? Or like, how would I? Well, let's first figure out why you're not there right now. Because when you figure out why you're not there right now, that will start to open your eyes. Well, okay, now I can see an action that I need to do, right? And so Yeah, that's I like that. I like that.
It's cool, huh?
Yeah.
And for some people, like that shows you what you need to outsource. Like
Mm,
there are some things that I know I just don't understand, or, I need a coach, or like I need someone to tell me what to do.
right.
And instead of spinning on like, I don't know how to do that, so I can't, I should probably switch my shit around. Like, no, like find someone who can do that for you. And that's what I think we get to see a lot in the team here is like, if I get, and it's definitely happened to me before, I get stuck on something that I can't figure out. But as soon as you outsource that to someone who actually does think differently than you, they can do it. And all of a sudden you're like past that loop.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's great about I think, surrounding yourself with people that are both great and different than you.
Yes. Yeah.
Which we have at Barbell Logic, that leadership team, as we are, there are so many different personalities and strengths and weaknesses that you get to work on this thing that you're strong at. And when you hit the thing that you're weak at, you get to ask for help and be supported by the support group. And by the way, it works the same in real life, right? So, if you're struggling with your nutrition for whatever reason, like how important is support there by your family, by the people you're eating with?
Yes.
That's how many times have we had a client, had a dad and a husband who struggled with their nutrition, and they have total control over what they eat most of the day. But then at dinner time, they're like, I want to eat dinner with my family. And you go, well, we want you to eat dinner with your family. We don't want you to eat something different.
Right.
And so, because then you have the support of the entire family, or my family, we all did the 10-day, what is it called? The 10-day challenge, the 10-day.
Take charge.
Thank you. The Take Charge
Yes.
10. We did it last year, all as a family, because they're all just healthy habits, right? So, by the way,
Yeah.
you can see that on the website. So, it were just healthy habits, things like drinking more water and eating more vegetables and having more fiber and stuff like that. So, we got to do that together so that I didn't feel like I didn't have the support. So, in the places where I was weak, the family could support me and we could support each other, and we can do the same thing on the team. And so, Jillian does this for me all the time in nutrition. She thinks differently than I do
Yes.
in nutrition. She's still very much able to think logically like I am, but I just think like a robot. I'm just systematic in my thinking, and she's not. And she'll come to me with a just a daily habit, a new daily habit for me to try, and I'll go, I've literally never thought of that. But that sounds great, and that sounds exactly like what I need. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
And that's the advantage of having somebody that thinks differently than you, that can support it.
Yeah. You got to talk to someone who's, like you said, thinks differently than you, or you just know that they're better than you are at something. Like, let them tell you what to do. They already figured this out.
Well, and supportive too, though, right? That's the other thing is that
Yeah.
finding the person that wants you to succeed. I don't know that anybody's going to want you to succeed as much as you want to succeed, but they are also for you. They're for your good. They're for your joy. And then you find that person who's different, and you know that they also want what you want. And that's great, right? So, and I think that's sometimes the danger in being in a bad relationship is that it's easy to go to a person who doesn't build you up, doesn't really want what you want. That's not the person you're looking for the opinion on. You're trying to find the person that's better at this than you are, who also is on your team. And that's key.
Yeah, because you get kind of interesting tunnel vision and you become blind to some things, and
That's right.
you need that person.
That's right.
I've been watching a lot of that show Alone. Have you watched this?
I've watched all of Alone.
Oh, okay.
I'm addicted to Alone.
Oh my God, it's so addicting.
I watch no reality TV except for Alone. By the way, shout out to the Meekums. Jesse and his family. That's where they originally told us that. Do you not remember that?
Oh, okay.
They are addicted to that show. And they were like, we were eating dinner at their house, and they were like, you haven't watched Alone? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, they drop people in the middle of like the Kodiak grizzly bear country of Canada, and they literally have to live alone and whoever lives alone the longest and doesn't get killed by grizzly bears wins all the money. And it's 100% legit. Like, there's no camera crews, right? So, okay, yeah. So you've been watching Alone.
It's so cool. Anyway, so I've been noticing that, the main goal, they have their main goal, which is
don't
to
die.
survive the longest amount of time.
That's right.
So don't die. But then they all go through those loops of just like, should I be here instead? Should I be doing this? Like, I don't know what to do. Like, where should I be going now? Should I set up this trap? And so they go through these loops where they spin for a while. And then after a while, And then when you're in a survival mode, it eventually becomes really clear, like, you need to get a fish so that you don't die.
That's right. That's right.
And like their metrics, I was thinking about this too. Their metrics are another day of being alive.
Right. Right.
Like it becomes like very clear, like you need to do what you do to, you need to do whatever you can to live another day.
Right. Or passing the rare med check, right? So
yes,
once they start getting into the show for a while, every 2 weeks or whatever, they come in and do a med check and they literally weigh them and they don't let them see the scale. They don't let them see the scale, right? You haven't noticed that? They cover the scale up.
I've
so
only watched
the
like
doctor,
the last season and some of the first season.
So only the doctor can see it. And they take like waist measurements and they look at, they're like, let me see your ribs. They make them pull their shirt up and show like their, and then sometimes they'll pull them for medical. So sometimes the metric is, or the goal is, don't get pulled. And that's the most painful part of it. If you watch that show, is that some people are, you're like, these people are mentally ready to win this thing. Mm-hmm. And they just lose so much weight, or they're like, listen, your body's shutting down. We got to pull you.
You are going to die.
So, so we don't have that. Which is great.
That's not really on the line. Unless you want it to be on the line, then you can go do that. But point being is that having a metric that you know you can control is really important for when you get into that zone of just like spinning, like, am I doing the right thing? I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Are my actions really aligned with what I really want? Am I using the right people? Like, you have to have some sort of objective measurement to be like,
that's right.
Am I on the right track?
Yeah, so they have some terms for this in the business world. So we use a term that we call it metrics that matter, right? So there are metrics that every team tracks, a bunch of metrics. But then we have this short list of metrics that matter. But there is a discussion in business a lot of what's called the North Star metric, the one metric. So that when your business is flailing, you can go like, wait, we've identified this is the thing that must be improved. And this is the primary thing. By the way, that's way harder to come up with than you think it is for both business and personal. Like, what is the one metric?
Just the one.
Yeah. The one that's, again, it's the one that's going to give the greatest return on investment. It's going to make sure, it's called North Star because it's the North Star metric, because it guarantees that if this thing is improving, you're going the right direction, right? It's the thing that lets you know that it's, and so, yeah, figuring that out, like, what is that metric? And in sort of a less stressful way to look at it, again, you can look at these, once you've figured out what the important goal is, or the important goals in your life are, and you've identified the actions that you're going to try to pursue that will help you meet those goals, then it's also, I think, not that difficult then to attach the metrics or the PRs to the actions that will support the goal. So if you're trying to, if you're trying to lose body fat, like, often, we've talked about this before, often weight on the scale is not the best metric, but it's it is a metric. It's a valid metric. Maybe it's waist measurement. Maybe it's, the size of clothes you fit into. For years, I'm back and forth between a 2X and a 1X. I know if I can't wear a 1X, I'm a little too fluffy. I know that if I'm right. And so that's a metric. It's a simple metric for me. And so identifying those, and same, you can do the same thing for strength. You can do the same thing. So there are a lot of those things that you can do and identify metrics that are the thing that's going to move the needle.
Like, am I doing this right? And we use this a lot is when we look at a metric, we have to think of what action are we going to take based on this metric? Mm-hmm. And if it's a metric that doesn't indicate that you need to take any action, then it's probably not a useful metric.
That's right.
And it might just be like distracting you.
Yep.
But so like in the lifting world, you would want to see like some PRs, or you might want to see like a number of competitions that you've competed in. It doesn't mean that you've won them, but the number that you've done shows that you are a competitive lifter.
Yep.
And so when you're fleshing out that ideal state that you want to be in, like, that's why it's helpful to put some detail on them, because that's where you can figure out what your metrics are.
I like that. I just got back from Mexico. Still got some pretty good color on me.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did, when I talked about this in a previous show, was I trained every day on vacation. This was one of the vacations that we take to, it's definitely not the nicest resort we've ever been. It's not, some people, I took a couple pictures of the gym and the spa. They're super nice. But the rest of the resort is like, it's okay. And the food's okay. But we go because the gym is incredible and has barbells, and the spa, which is attached to the gym, we have access to every single day. And so for me, as I've been enjoying a healthy lifestyle again for the last several months, I knew that I could go on a vacation like this. I could get up every morning. I could go train with my wife. We do it every day. So we do like one lift a day, do a lift and a couple accessory movements, and then another lift the next day. And then, so we'd train for an hour or 45 minutes, and then we would just go walk over to the spa and we do hot tub, cold tub, things like that. And so, and then I could also, because the breakfast and lunch were buffets, I could always eat really healthy. I could always there was always grilled meat. I would eat every morning for breakfast. I would eat like salmon sashimi and boiled eggs. I would eat, grilled chicken, breast, and veggies and stuff for lunch.
Really
and then I could eat whatever I wanted to for dinner. But here's the interesting thing. So I say all this because I've really been, I want to continue to lose weight, which if I dig, like why, right? Because I feel way better. I feel more healthy when I do. And the health metrics are all there. And so I made these steps to start to move the right direction. I'm feeling really good with training. I'm feeling really good, right? Like I'm losing weight and my waist is coming down and things feel good. But my sleep sucked.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, why is my sleep sucking? I was at an all-inclusive resort in Mexico. I was like, I'm drinking too much. And again, not drunk, not addicted, and then I came home from
just
Mexico.
Enough to mess with your sleep.
Yeah, I think so. And a big caloric load. So, I'm not drinking sweet. I don't drink any sweet drinks, but I'm just like, just sipping on rum or sipping on still like very calorically dense. So I got home and I was like, I'm just cutting it out. I'm cutting it out. So I haven't had alcohol in a while. And it's, Niki, we track our sleep. My deep sleep is approaching 50% of my total sleep. I've never seen it. Like I'll sleep for 6 hours at night and have 3 hours of deep. My resting heart rate at night, that's
amazing.
20 beats lower a minute. 20.
That's amazing. This is huge.
And I'm like, okay, wow. So, and I'm not going to, I just wanted, I wanted to reset. I don't think I need to never have alcohol again. I'm not, but I'm like, man, February, I'm definitely not. It's not, and I don't crave it. I haven't, it's not like, so I feel better. And so for me, it was one of those, like, I had already made some of those steps, some of those action steps that were easy. It's very easy to train every day when you're on vacation in Mexico. It gets harder when you come home and you got a big proposal to do and you're working with the team, right? You're doing the project, but we're doing it. We're training every day. And then it was like, okay, what's the next step for the biggest return on investment? And I was like, I know it's the alcohol from both the caloric load and the sleep and the problems of sleep. And so cut it out, immediate change. I mean, within 2 days, massive change.
That's so cool.
So now it put me back on the North Star, sort of like, okay, we're moving in the right direction. And that will work for a while and then it will stop and I'll have to make another action step.
Yeah. That's so rad. That's a really beautiful example of knowing what's important to you and then having to make the choice of, is this more important? Is the cocktail more important to me or is the sleep more important to me?
Right.
And you knew which one, and a lot of people speak to this, like the higher level you or the lower level you, you wanted the higher level feel.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Especially when I knew that, again, without getting into details, there are a million important things we're working on at the business right now. And I need to be super sharp and I need to be able to extend my work days, which means I don't need the 3 p.m. cocktail. And and so typically it's like, okay, I get up early and work and then shut it down mid-afternoon, but I can't shut it down mid-afternoon right now. I have to continue to work. And then if I'm not careful, I'll rile myself up to the point that it also affects my sleep. So for me, it was just one of those, it was, man, I love having a cocktail. I love it. And I'm not gonna, judge anybody that doesn't. I'm sure there will be a day when I'll go back to that, but I needed to reset and because other things are more important in my life. So did it. It's working.
Nice.
I feel good.
I like that. And that's cool that you were able to adapt and not beat yourself up about it. Because I think that's really important too. The little things that you learn along the way.
Yep.
You're like, man, why am I like that?
That's exactly right.
It's okay. Just keep adapting and getting better and better.
Anytime you're really trying to reach a goal that's hard, there is going to be some amount of self-sacrifice. So you have to realize, you can't do it all. We've talked about this. You can't do it all at once. That's not sustainable. It's one thing at a time. and for me, actually, I talked to Jillian about this. It's it's back to the, I almost hesitate to say this. Sometimes I think half the people listen to the podcast like, it's so ridiculous that he even has to do it. But it's like, I make the bubbly water with the lemon, and it looks like a cocktail, and I have that at 3 p.m.
Awesome.
And
It's
it's
a treat.
not, I
It's a
don't,
ritual.
yeah, right. And
Yeah.
it's the tea. That's the other thing. I've cut back my coffee quite a bit too, because I also felt like I'd have 1 or 2 coffees, but I'm maxing it at 2. More than that, I'm
Yeah.
like, that kind of just gives me anxiety. So I can switch to tea, which is way less caffeine. I had 1 coffee this morning and switched to tea. So anyway, it's not to say all that's to listen. I've struggled with this a lot more than I've had control over it, but it's a good example of just making decisions. I love coffee and I love whiskey and I love but at some point I was going, man, the net impact of those things on my life right now are negative. So we got to make a decision. Like, am I going to continue to let it have a net negative, or am I going to pursue the goal? And right now the goal is a healthy Matt, a sharp mental Matt, so that I can continue to do the work that needs to be done in the business and, provide for my family. And so, yeah.
Crushing it.
So that's me. Because,
That's
and
awesome.
the goal right now for me is not to set all-time strength PRs. My
Yeah.
goal isn't a 700-pound deadlift. It has been in the past. It's not right now. Training in the gym, it's about consistency. It's about my training's going really well because I'm consistent, not because I'm chasing PRs right now. The PR I'm chasing is consistency. That's the PR. That's the metric. So
that's really something we've seen a lot in our lifters, because we have had some lifters who have been with us for such a long time, is they join and we ask them what their goals are for their lifts. And some of them are just, they don't have numbers that they want to hit, but some of them are just like, I am going to squat 405.
Yep.
And that is ultimately very important. And then when they hit that, sometimes it is, okay, well now clearly 500, but sometimes it's just like, yeah, I just want to enjoy my strength and maintain and be consistent. And awesome.
Yep.
You can still I think the 405 was what they needed to see in the goal, when really it was another way of living life that might have been the bigger picture goal.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So anything else before we step to practical, actionable ideas that our listeners can take away? Anything else in your plan to talk
I think
through?
the one thing when you're sketching out your goal is kind of, we touched on it earlier, is it should make you a little scared, and it should make you act differently than how you're acting now. Not all at once.
Right.
But you should start to make little changes that are different than how you're acting each day.
Yep.
Little scared, little different.
Right. And here's the emphasis. The lil.
Yeah.
the lil's really, because it is, right? So we've heard about SMART goals before, right? So make sure they're specific and measurable, achievable. They got to be achievable. This is why I don't you can't, the goal really, maybe you've got this idea or this dream out there, hey, I want my waist size to decrease 10 inches. That's not a great achievable goal in the here and now, right? 1 inch, inch and a half, whatever it is, right? And give it a time limit too. I like the idea of not, as a matter of fact, I would even argue that the goal often doesn't have to have time attached to it, but the actions underneath them should.
Yeah.
So you say, I know that what I'm pursuing is this goal. Because listen, we're going to overshoot and undershoot all the time. We're never going to say, if I said, okay, I'm going to get my waist under 40 inches and we get it to 39 something, and I'm going to do that by X time, right? And that's the primary goal, which I would argue we could onion peel that down and there'd probably be a better goal.
For sure.
But if that's the main goal, I'm either going to overshoot or undershoot. A better idea is find the deeper goal in the center of the onion that really matters, and then build the actions to support that goal and give those actions some time constraints. I'm going to do this action by this time. And you should be able to just answer yes or no. Did I do the action by that time? Yes or no? If it's no, were you close? If it's no, did it take just a couple more weeks? Did you still hit it? Those are all good things, right? So you don't have to, the binary yes or no doesn't mean you have to judge yourself if the answer is no. It just gives you something to weigh with the metrics to go is it working or not? If the answer is no and you are way off, then you either set the wrong action or you're not really pursuing the goal.
Can't do it. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So actionable takeaways?
Well, take some time to think about it. And depending on what kind of person you are, journal about it, go on a walk. Like, if you're like me, you'll go on 8-mile hikes and just completely rethink your entire life
Yeah.
over and over again. Or, talk to someone who you're really comfortable with, who you're just like, I really want this. And they'll listen to you and kind of push you a little bit and get there and think about it, like really think about it. And then write it out, make it very descriptive. And then you can build your action plan.
By the way, I think everybody should do that. We're really different personalities, but I always write my goals down. And you always write your goals down. So regardless of how you're thinking about them or how you're processing them, at some point you should be able to clearly write it down. What is the goal?
Because you have to be able to articulate it.
You have to be.
If you can't articulate it, it's just this ethereal thing.
Well, and especially even with the advice you gave, for me, I'm going to process it verbally. So I need to be able to articulate it, and I'll learn how that I become more able to articulate cleanly and clearly and more efficiently as I talk through it. And for you sit down and think through, think, write, edit, whatever. And then you're able to articulate probably the first time you talk through it. And the actions that support that then come with the conversation that you have with the person that's different than you.
Exactly.
So, but I still think being able to write it down is just, it really doesn't matter what your personality is. That's something you should be able to do.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Do you ever have an idea in your head? I just have I had all these ideas in my head. I was like, maybe I'll write an article. And I started to write it. I was like, man, nothing in my head is making any sense. I have no idea how to translate this onto paper.
Dude, we're talking. Yes, I have this all the time. Well,
it's brutal.
I am, and I don't want to speak. I'll speak for me, but I think that you would say you're similar in some ways, different than me. But communicating effectively via written word is difficult for me. I watch Nick Solin. I watch Nick.
He's amazing.
Say what?
Nick is amazing, but I never would have thought that you're not good at it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not good at it. I can get there, but what I mean is, I am so much better spoken than I am written. That I have these ideas. My notepad on my phone is just full of ideas, full of bullet points and stuff. And then I can sit down and talk to somebody about it and work through it and articulate it pretty well. And when I sit down and try to type it, I'm like, this is so hard. But I still think it's a really valuable exercise. This is something that we've stolen from Amazon. Amazon's done this for years. They have these 6-page narratives. When you're presenting hey, this is a big deal, right? When somebody sat down and wrote about Amazon Web Services, right? So Amazon's the biggest retailer in the world, also the biggest web host in the world, right? I don't even know how those are interconnected, but they are. Some guy wrote a 6-page narrative and said, this is why I think that there is a major opportunity for us to basically be the world leader in internet web hosting. That's cool. Wrote a 6-page. The ability, whether it doesn't matter whether you're not a great written communicator or not, it forces you to distill down your thoughts into coherent sentences and paragraphs and present it to the team. And that's tough. But it's less for the team than it is for you.
Yeah, because you have to sell yourself on it over and over again.
And continue to can I really articulate this? And you'll read it and you'll be like, this isn't quite saying what I want it to say. Now, working on the proposal that we've done, we're like, man, it's close, but it's not quite so. Yeah, that stuff's important. So I think being able to write that down and articulate the goals and the actions to support those goals are incredibly important.
Yeah. And then the next step is to write out your excuses, air quotes.
Why aren't you there?
Why aren't you there? Why are you not that person right now? And that can start to identify your action plan and then figure out what you can't do, which is totally fine, and find someone or find a way to figure out how to do that.
Yep.
Start getting help. And then give yourself some metrics and hold yourself accountable to them.
I love it.
And then you'll have everything you want in the world. You're welcome, everybody.
Well, there is something nice about having direction, right? Again, another topic for another day. Is even getting the goal, or is pursuing the goal? Right?
Yeah.
It's the journey. Yeah. It's the journey that matters. And so you identify what's important to you. You set that, and you really dig deep to find that deep goal. You've got to allow yourself to be really vulnerable to get down to the center of the onion and go okay, this is the goal. And then just like you said, why am I not there now? Let that inform the actions. Identify the actions that you need to pursue to help reach the goal, and then say, what are the metrics or in the business world, or PRs. What are the things we track? By the way, it's the reason that we have set the Block app up the way it has. It auto tracks all of those metrics. For us, it was so important to be able to show that to our clients, show it even to as a coach. How nice is it to be able to look at that for your clients? And I know that what I'm doing is working or not.
Big time.
Because it auto tracks the metrics. So you track those metrics, those strength PRs, those weight PRs, those waist PR, like whatever those things
number
are.
Of workouts completed.
That's exactly right. And if it's not, what you're pursuing is not a physical strength, nutrition, body goal, like it obviously could be like, you could have a goal to be a better dad, a better mom, better husband, better wife, better worker, better whatever. And I would challenge you to continue to peel back the onion to figure out exactly why and hone in on what it is that you're trying to do. But it works there just as well. Like you can actually do this to pursue a healthier marriage or finances, or, any of those things work. Like this pursuit of goals works in really any area of life, business.
Yep.
We use it every day, all the time.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's it. Pursue goals. I'd love to do a future episode soon then on habits and how we translate these goals into actual habits. Have you read Atomic Habits by James Cleary?
I've read a little bit of it. It's sitting right there, arm's reach. Yeah.
It's really
I'll
good.
make sure and read it before our next one.
It's really good. It is one of those books that I think it could have been written in 25 to 33% of the pages that he used, right? There's a lot of like examples. So, and some people need those, like, give me the idea. I get the idea. I'm like, oh, I got it. Right. And he's like, here's the idea. And then here's a couple stories about why that works. Like, I don't really need the stories, but it's a great book about taking these goals and transition. Give it a little tease, probably what we talk about is, and he says, for the habits and the goals, to pursue the goals, like, what's the habit that you need to do? Like, make it obvious what you're trying to do, make it attractive, figure out a way to make it like, this is something I really want to pursue.
That's cool. Yeah.
Make it easy as you can on yourself, right? You don't want to overcome. So for example, if somebody really hates waking up early in the morning, like, I'm going to work out at 5 a.m. every morning, like, probably not easy enough to make it work.
We see a little bit of path of least resistance.
That's right.
In some way. Yeah.
Back to the example in Mexico, I wouldn't let myself go to the spa unless I trained.
Oh, cool.
So there were a couple days where I'm like, oh man, I've been out in the sun a bit. My hips kind of hurt, but you know what? What I really want to do is go to that cold tub in the spa, but I'm not going to let myself do it. You would never get in that cold tub, by the way. You'd be like, no, not interested. That was right. Rachel would put her one toe in and she'd be like, let's get in the sauna again. Anyway, make it easy and make it satisfying or gratifying. And that plays. And so
I like that.
We can transition. We'll do a future episode here on how to transition from the goals to the actual habits to meet those goals.
Cool.
Awesome.
Love it. Awesome, everybody.
But another episode of the Barbell Logic podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We are on YouTube now. So if you're just listening to this and not watching, you can watch. All you have to do is go to youtube.com/C/Barbell Logic podcast. Is that right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I think the C is always for channel. If you search Barbell Logic podcast, it will come up.
Cool.
Now, right? And so you can.
It's for cool.
You can see us talk. You can see the snow in the background. And mostly you'll come to look at Niki, and I understand. I
know Matt's on the way to really just outdoing me on wardrobe. You're going to see me in like the same 4 shirts, just cycled over and over again.
No.
Good times.
So thanks for listening. We'd love a 5-star review on either Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you listen. And we'll catch you next week. Happy goal setting, everybody.
Bye, everybody.